Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. The concept of justice is among the most universal across the human spectrum. It is difficult to imagine any society existing without some notion of justice. In a sense, it really wouldn't be a society at all. It would simply be a group of people living together in some uncertain state of anarchy. At any time, all hell could break loose and the society could fall apart. It is this idea of justice, among other core ideas, that is the glue that holds everything together. It is not easy to define the word justice. Like many such fundamental terms, justice seems to defy definition. Most who attempt to define it will end up at something like fairness or morality or integrity. While these are accurate descriptions of what justice is all about, they hardly explain the concept any more than the word we are trying to define. Yet people in every society use this word in whatever language they speak all the time. They all seem to know what they are talking about when they use this word. The problem is that different people using the same word may have completely different ideas of what the word actually means. It is clear that the word justice is related to the word just, but this doesn't really help us in understanding the word. What is just? This word can be used for situations that have nothing at all to do with courts of law and morality. We can say that something is just right, or somebody arrived just in time. In those cases, the word means exact or precise. This perhaps is the real meaning of this word, and the word justice is an extension of this definition. Justice, according to this, is a kind of precise or exact way of applying the law. It means getting it exactly right with no fudging things around. We may not use the word justice in this way all the time. We may even understand it to mean the opposite, but at least we have gained some clarity on what the word actually means. Sometimes examining words such as these in Hebrew might help us in understanding what the biblical perspective was on this concept. It happens that there are two words in biblical Hebrew that are commonly translated as justice or something along those lines. The first is tzedek. This word has become famous in certain circles because of several noteworthy verses in the Bible which use it. One of the better known of these comes up about halfway through the book of Deuteronomy. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, which is usually translated as justice, justice you shall pursue. This phrase may be found on the walls of a courthouse or a law school. It is among the more famous expressions advocating the noble pursuit of justice in all of human history. However, there is another word that can also be translated as justice in biblical Hebrew. This is the word mishpat, and its related words shofet or shoftim. The word mishpat really means judgment, and the other two words mean judge or judges. These, of course, are the people who administer justice. A judgment is a way of applying justice. It is sizing up the situation at hand and attempting to arrive at a just resolution. So the two basic words, tzedek and mishpat, don't mean exactly the same thing, but they are closely related. Justice, or tzedek, is the goal, and judgment, or mishpat, is the way to attain it. It happens that the first word, tzedek, has another translation that may be a bit more common. This second translation is righteousness, a very biblical-sounding word that people today may be a little reluctant to use for fear of sounding overly biblical. Righteousness, of course, means doing things right or correctly. This is where all those notions of morality come into play. But it really fits into the actual definition of justice in the sense of being exact or precise. It is doing things the way they should be done, or according to some legal or moral standard. Now we can get to something about the Parsha. This week's Parsha is called Devarim. That word means words or things. It may seem surprising that the words for words and things could be the same in Hebrew, but such is indeed the case. Or a word is not really all that different from a thing if we think about it. They are both items of reality. A thing is some recognizable element of the way the world is, while a word is a human way of expressing an element of reality. This Parsha and the book we are about to start has this as a title. While the book is commonly known as Deuteronomy, that is really the Latin name and not the traditional Jewish name. Deuteronomy means second law, a reference to the fact that this entire book is a kind of retelling of earlier books or sections of the Torah. The first third of the book, including this week's Parsha, is a historical recap of much of what happened to the Israelites from the time they received the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. The entire 40-year period is covered in one way or another over the first Parshas of this book. Not every detail is found here, but many of the events are retold to bring across a certain message. In fact, this book is really one long speech from Moshe to the Israelites, reminding them of their origins, their history, their laws, and their destiny. The second third of the book is a recap of many of the laws. This is really why the book has the name Deuteronomy. Many of these laws seem to be nothing more than repetitions of earlier laws. On the other hand, many of these repetitions actually represent the particular law slightly differently from how it was originally presented. This always results in a somewhat different version of the law to make a resolution of the two descriptions. The third section of the book gets into Israelite destiny. This section comes across as very prophetic. It includes a good deal of tragedy and rebuke. The Israelite destiny is not all peaches and cream. There are countless problems and downfalls that this consequential nation was fated to face, and they would be destined to pay the price for whatever failures they were to commit. But in the end, their destiny was to be redeemed and to find their way back, both to the land of Israel and to God. This week's Parsha covers much of that recap. In one way or another, the whole 40-year journey is included in the Parsha. It starts with the Israelites encamped at Mount Sinai and God telling Moshe that it is time to move on and get to the ultimate goal of entering the land of Israel. But getting from Mount Sinai to Israel, which should have taken about 11 days, ended up encompassing 40 years. The key event that led to this enormous delay is recounted towards the beginning of the Parsha, the infamous story of the spies. This story is retold in many of its tragic details, the rebellion against faith in God's ability to come through on the basic promises of success, and the fear that the entire enterprise would end in catastrophic failure. This is precisely what happened, but it was due to a lack of faith and not from God abandoning them. The rest of the Parsha goes through the travels and the battles from the southeastern border of Israel to the entire eastern side. This included going through the lands of a few surrounding nations and dealing with them either through negotiations or through war. There is one somewhat small section right before the recounting of the story of the spies that deals with Moshe appointing various officers to handle the day-to-day needs of the vast Israelite population. Moshe himself knew that it was necessary to spread out the responsibilities. It was simply too much for one man to handle. There were countless little problems and disputes that would inevitably happen among such a large group traveling as nomads through the wilderness. These other people would be in charge of various subsets of the population. Over thousands, over hundreds, over 50s, and over tens. They also included some sort of police to enforce the law. The key instructions that Moshe gives to these officers is the following, quote, "Listen to the interactions of your brothers and judge with justice between each man and his brother, between a brother and an outsider. Do not show any favoritism in judgment. Listen to the great and the small alike. Do not be impressed by any one person, for judgment belongs to God. And any matter that is too difficult for you, bring it to me, and I will hear it." This reads like a general prescription on justice and judgment. The basic idea is to treat everyone equally and to avoid the temptation to show favoritism one way or the other. All are to be equal before the law, a classic goal that in any society that advocates justice, which is only rarely attained. This expression of, quote, "do not be impressed by any one person," is not an exact translation. It really means do not recognize from the face of a man. But that somewhat meaningless phrase really means don't get swayed by how impressive a person appears. People look different and they act different. And there will always be the temptation and the almost automatic feeling that one person deserves more than another when it comes to justice and judgment. This expression is saying to not fall for that temptation. Always stick to the strict rules of justice as the sole guide in judgment. But that added expression, quote, "for judgment belongs to God," needs to be understood. What exactly is that line doing here? Isn't this entire section saying that we have to handle our own issues of justice and judgment as best we can. We cannot expect God to somehow work things out so that justice will always be divinely guided. Perhaps there are two ways of answering this question. The first, which is probably more expected from the Bible, is that whenever a judge truly attempts to apply these principles, God will always be there to guide the judgment. In other words, that divine element will be there as long as justice is truly pursued in judgment. The second answer is a little more radical, at least from a biblical perspective. This proposes that the demand to not be impressed by any person when it comes to justice is based on the fundamental idea that judgment ultimately belongs to God. Whatever we do as far as justice is concerned is really nothing more than our attempt to apply these principles as best we can. But at the end of the day, all justice and judgment belongs to God. There is no reason to show any favoritism or be impressed with any particular person. None of that really matters in the end. God ultimately settles the score whether we can see it or not. Showing favoritism in one way or another is our own very human way of injecting our own 2 cents into God's plan. When all the dust settles, it is God's judgment that decides how things turn out. All that we can really do is to try to make things just or right from our end. We are nothing more and nothing less than agents of God. Shabbat Shalom.